Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Tonight, we are celebrating 70 years here at Channel 2.
Pretty amazing, right? Since September 25th, 1954, we have been on the air covering stories that matter to you.
Whether it's sunny skies or storms that have made a lasting impact, you can always count on 2.
Sure can. Our history is your history. You, your parents, your grandparents have counted on us from the time we signed on as WUSN.
To today as WCBD, where we have been your source for local news and programming. What an experience it has been for us to be in this community for so many years, and most recently to open the doors to Joan Mack and Happy Rain, 2 people who broke barriers and set new standards in television journalism. Can you describe the difference in the actual building in comparison to what you're seeing today?
Today is a real studio.
You might be surprised to learn a woman known for her resonant anchor voice and eloquent writing style actually studied science at South Carolina State College. But in WCBD's 25th year, her success as a talk show host at WCBD's competition made Joan Mack a standout addition on the reporting team.
News director at the other channel, he had already moved to Channel 2 as well, so he knew my work.
A seat at the news anchor desk, becoming the first African-American woman news anchor at WCBD.
At the time, there were no blacks in the anchoring position. I was allowed to anchor, do special news reports for the 6 o'clock news and the 5-part series. And I just liked going to the people, and those series took me to the people with the problems or the issue. Be in the community and let people get to know you. You see me delivering the news and telling you something that either you should do or should not do, that I can trust you, that you're connecting with me.
Does that look familiar?
I know. Well, let me go sit down.
Tell me what you think about that picture.
Well,
Legends, I see.
Yeah,
You and Joan Mack.
Joan was a good friend of mine.
Rainey Evans, or Happy Rain, as people have called her since 1960, is another beloved icon in WCBD's history. When you came to Channel 2, you had a goal in mind, and that was to educate and entertain children.
My husband, Buddy Evans, who was the general manager of Channel 2 at that time, he had a dream too, to produce a children's show, an educational show, to have me do that, because he felt like that I had so much influence on the children in the area.
Her show was Scout About. The show was a travel log, children learning about their cities and towns through the magic of TV.
We won the South Carolina Children's Award for children's programming, South Carolina broadcasters, and
Happy Rain was no doubt a hero to children who enjoyed seeing her in her leather dress, but behind the scenes she was championing safeguards for what children would see on TV. As we celebrate our 70th anniversary, we honor trailblazers such as Joan Mack and Rainey Happy Rain Evans and many others who paved the way for generations. Their contributions have shaped our identity at WCBD News 2 and continue to inspire us every day.
Well, not all of Channel 2's personalities were in studio. Octavia Mitchell, that is, tells us located outside our station at 210 West Coleman Boulevard, people from all over stopped by to see and meet Susie Q.
It's not something you hear about every day when it comes to local television news. An elephant as a station mascot. Yet Channel 2 has the unique distinction of not only having one, but our Susie Q actually lived here on station grounds. Why an elephant? Well, why not? Channel 2 already had dogs, cats, exotic birds, a donkey, alligator, and even a kangaroo. And the station's owner, Drayton Hasty, simply thought it was a good idea to buy an elephant. And so in 1954, he bought one, an Asian elephant for $2,700 from a New York importer. In 2008, the town of Mount Pleasant honored Susie Q with an historical marker in our front yard. Our beloved Susie Q provided years of enjoyment for people in the Lowcountry. Parents brought their children to the station to visit Susie Q and ride her back. She was even the target of a major prank at the Citadel in the fall of 1958. Now a part of the Citadel's history thanks to Bobby Schwartz and Jim Jeffrey, both from the Citadel class of 1959.
We went out on Thursday night and proceeded to go to the pen, which was right out in front of the station, and the pen was unlocked. I recall that, and I found that to be very unusual. Once we hooked the trailer behind the car was sitting at a kind of angle like this once we loaded the Susie Q, and I knew we would drive across the Grace Memorial Bridge with the car at this angle with an elephant in the back.
I think it accomplished what we wanted it to accomplish. Everybody was excited, and make a long story short, we beat VMI.
Young and the young at heart, Susie Q brought smiles and joy to people across the Lowcountry. And like an elephant's memory, her legacy is long and everlasting. Octavia Mitchell, Count on 2.
Yep, we had an elephant on News 2 grounds. Still to come, we celebrate 70 years of WCBD. Some of the big stories we have covered throughout the years, the good, the bad, the happy and sad, when we come back. As we celebrate 70 years of responsible journalism and storytelling here at WCBD News 2, we realize through the years, good or bad, the stories we bring you each and every day is our responsibility to educate and inform. Here's a look at some of the bigger stories we've covered the past 7 decades. They haven't all been good and not all have been bad, but all these stories have affected our community in one way or another. After signing on in 1954, then WUSN dealt with civil unrest. The Charleston sit-ins in 1960, high school students filled up the lunch counter at the Crest store on King Street as part of a civil rights protest. Pee Wee Gaskins at the top of the newscast in the 1970s, a serial killer and rapist who killed more than a dozen people in this state. We watched in 1992 as Lowcountry rapist Duncan Proctor crashed his car in a high-speed chase that left him paralyzed and with brain damage. We weren't there for an opening in 1901, but WCBD was there as Charleston Navy Base closed. Many feared at the time Charleston wouldn't survive. In 1993, budget cuts led to the decision to close the base, and on April 1st of 1996, it officially closed. We covered royalty in Charleston, Prince Charles visiting the Holy City for the second time in 1990. We were at the airport when he got here, as Prince Charles made the stop just months after Hurricane Hugo. Eyes of the world watching through our lens as Shannon Faulkner became the first female to attend the Citadel in 1994. She lasted only days, but since then many women have now graduated from the military college. Pure excitement as in 2000, the location of the H.L. Hundley Confederate submarine underwater for over 100 years is announced. All hands on deck at WCBD as people from around the world watched as the Hundley, suspended from a crane, is recovered and brought back through Charleston Harbor on August 8, 2000. As Charleston grew in the 2000s, we welcomed the Arthur Ravenel Bridge, the third longest cable-stayed bridge in the Western Hemisphere. Construction began in 2001 as we were live as the bridge officially opened July 6, 2005. It was quite the spectacle. We have covered our share of tragedy the past 2 decades, the Sofa Superstore fire in June of 2007, the unfortunate task of telling viewers 9 of Charleston's bravest had died fighting this fire. Almost 8 years later, to the day, wall-to-wall coverage on News 2 as 9 parishioners were shot and killed inside Emmanuel AME Church in downtown Charleston. The following days filled with anxiety, grief, and forgiveness. Names we will never forget in our coverage at News 2, people like Walter Scott, Alec Murdoch, and George Floyd. Live coverage from the riots that broke out in downtown Charleston. A lot to look back on, and News 2 wouldn't be what it is today without those who have come before us.
You're absolutely right.
And we've all had the chance to work with some great journalists right here at News 2.
Yeah, Riley Benson took a walk down memory lane with some of our former anchors.
You're watching your first news at 5 o'clock with Nina Sosova.
Talk to me about some of the biggest stories that have stuck with you, that you covered when you were here for News 2.
Flying through Hurricane Andrew on a tracking plane and things. But there was a Lowcountry serial rapist in the 90s. and his name was Duncan Proctor. And we hear on the radio that they'd gotten into a chase and they'd gotten him, and they hadn't opened 526 yet. It was still under construction, but the cops were using it.
Okay.
And we see all these cops flying over 526. And so we're like, we could do it. We could just follow them. We got there, and then the news truck came, and I crawled up on top of the old white news trucks, the van, and we put up the live shot, and I stood on top of that.
With Spencer Pryor, he's over at the Emergency Operations Center in North Charleston.
Spencer, what's the latest out there?
Well, the latest is that folks are again breathing a sigh of relief. The one for me that was probably the most impactful was covering the death and the funeral services of U.S. Senator Strom Thurmond. And it was, you know, I'll never forget that.
A number of the firefighters is that this was the perfect storm.
You know, when those first calls started coming in from friends saying, hey, are you seeing what's going on? Because we got 5 guys missing, and then it's 6 guys missing. And that number just kept growing throughout the night. That sticks with me. I mean, today, the number 9 on those fire trucks brings back a lot of tough memories.
You can count on 2 in the 21st century.
Is there any other final thoughts that you would want to add to this momentous occasion for the channel?
I love this place. I love this space. This community is so great. Through the years, I think that Channel 2 has done a wonderful job of cultivating good humans to be a part of the community and tell the story.
Reporting from Savannah, Georgia, Spencer Pryor, News 2 at 6 o'clock. It's just unbelievable to know that an organization like News 2 remains around in our community for 70 years and doing great things in the community.
Thank you, and for the final time, going back to where this station was when I got here, to look at it now and how far this station has come, and people still lean on what we do here, and I will forever be proud of my time here and proud of what's going on here today.
Wow, weather impacts everyone. It's our job to keep you informed. When we come back, we'll take a look at some of the several significant weather events that have shaped the Lowcountry over these past 70 years. We have come a long way in weather forecasting and technology since 1954. When we signed on, we had no weather satellite in space. What that means is 2 significant hurricanes in our history, Hazel in 1954 and Gracie in 1959, were forecast without the help of anything above us looking down.
With meteorologist Rob Fowler.
When it comes to Hazel, it was certainly worse for North Carolina, but for us, it was the first hurricane we had to deal with after signing on the air. Hazel made landfall in North Carolina on October 15th of 1954, some 3 weeks after WUSN flipped on the switch. Gracie, 5 years later in September of 1959, was more destructive. In fact, damage in Charleston was described in a Weather Bureau report as widespread and extensive. Gracie made landfall near St. Helena Sound with winds near 130 miles an hour. Let's break away from hurricanes and talk about something we don't see very often, and that is snow. There are 2 main snow events in our storied weather history. The first was known as the Great Southeast Snowstorm of February 1973. The total for us between February 9th and 11th was 7.1 inches, the second highest storm total in our history. So what was number 1? Well, we always refer to this event as the Hugo snow. Even though it happened months after Hugo and the hurricane had nothing to do with creating the snow, it was just ironic it happened the same year. A total of 8 inches fell between December 22nd and 24th, with 6 inches falling on the 23rd. It was our first and only White Christmas on record. Not snow, but rainfall got our attention in October of 2015. Here in the Lowcountry, almost 19 inches of rain fell in those first 5 days. On October 3rd, we saw 11.5 inches of rain, making that day our wettest in history.
The latest is Hurricane Floyd.
For us, Floyd was the storm which changed policy and opinion.
Responsibility lies with me. I'm the governor.
Known as the Floyd fiasco, the lane reversal or lack of reversal made for extremely long trips to evacuate.
There will be more flooding as a result of this storm than any Charlestonian has ever experienced. It will boggle the mind.
Power is out now. North Charleston with the eye of Hurricane Hugo.
Right now it is 10 o'clock on the battery. Hurricane Hugo is just 2 hours away.
And that brings us to the biggest weather event to impact us since we signed on the air 70 years ago. Hurricane Hugo 35 years ago became a timeline.
Worst is yet to come.
And benchmark storm for what can happen.
It was quite scary here.
And most likely will happen again in the future. We certainly can't stop these storms, but what we have done over these many years of broadcasting,
We will stay on the air or make every attempt to.
is learn from past events, helping us better prepare for whatever the next 70 years throw our way when it comes to weather.
Amazing stories. Our work as journalists at News 2 goes beyond sharing your stories. We are also a part of your community. Coming up next, we take a look at many ways we stand shoulder to shoulder as we uncover truth and celebrate our successes. From the stories we tell you on air to being out in the community with each of you.
We are so very proud to have served you for 70 years and counting.
And Josh Marthers gives us a final look at our commitment to this community.
Commitment to your community. It's why we do what we do and why you continue to count on 2 after 70 years. It's not just about covering news or delivering the forecast for us. It's about showcasing the best the Lowcountry has to offer. News 2 covers the events driving your life. We start with the Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade, which we broadcast live each year in January. By February, we're gearing up for the start of tourism season and the Southeastern Wildlife Expo. Once into spring, we head to Somerville to share the sights and sounds of the Flowertown Festival and broadcast the Cooper River Bridge Run live, among many other festivals and events through the year. We finish up by wishing you a happy holiday season at several local parades, including Charleston, North Charleston, Mount Pleasant, Somerville, just to name a few. Community service is also a big part of who we are. From our corporate-wide Founders Day of Giving in June to the annual Clear the Shelters campaign in August, we work with national and local partners to have the greatest impact on our community and deliver the results you deserve. Our largest undertaking of the year, 20 Days of Giving, in support of Toys for Tots, is spearheaded by our own Santa, Rob Fowler. Lowcountry children in need are taken care of each holiday season thanks to Rob and the generosity of this wonderful place we call home. We are proud to be a part of your life each day, and we thank you for counting on 2 for the last 70 years.